Lovely, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to come and speak with you today. I'm going to take the risk during this presentation of doing a bit of a demonstration, so if you've brought a device with you, be it phone, iPad, laptop, etc., do have it to hand, and after a few slides we're going to leap in and have a go, or you can perhaps share with the person next to you. So, I'm a mental health nurse by background, and you've heard a little bit about some of the subjects that I teach. And I'm here today to talk to you about NICE evidence search, a particular search engine, and also some research that we've been doing at Swansea University over the past few years. It's really to inform you about this particular peer-led digital literacy scheme. And to think about how it can promote confidence and competence, particularly in health professional students. And so I'm going to talk about the NICE Student Champion Scheme, some of the Student Champions' experiences, and I'm going to explain all about what the Student Champion Scheme involves, and just to think generally about learners' awareness about the NICE evidence search engine. And as I've said, there'll be a short demonstration as part of this. Okay, so we live very much in an information and digital literacy age, and Janssen and Stoyanov have actually identified a number of digital competencies. Now this may be a little bit small for some of you at the back, but just to think generally about some of our confidence and competence in some of these areas, how we use digital literacy in our everyday life. For example, I was spending some time in recent days looking on the NICE evidence search engine, and equally a couple of days ago in the garden my husband and I were looking at our Facebook settings in terms of security, and we need to think about these issues in terms of privacy. Equally, in the last 12 months, this has involved a lot of learning for many of us to do with data protection and the new GDPR guidance, privacy notices, etc. Thinking about some of the legal and ethical issues of how we use, how we gain confidence in digital literacy. So there's a lot for this in terms of students, and I can only talk about Swansea University. How do we prepare our health professional students in terms of some of these competencies? We involve our fantastic team of library staff, and there will be a number of sessions that students will have for particular search engines as they think about developing literature review assignments. And we also get students to think about their own digital footprint, and so for many of them they'll have sat in a room full of PCs and they maybe have Googled themselves for the first time. Well, it is fascinating to see what people come up with. If you've never Googled yourself, I recommend doing it a couple of times a year just to keep an eye on your own footprint. Lots of things students have found out about themselves that were live to the nation and wider that they weren't aware about. So there's a lot here in terms of digital literacy, thinking where we are, thinking are there more things we need to learn about that. And so students do hear about NICE evidence search just with the kind of snippets of information at the start of the majority of their health professional training for a range of different courses. I'm going to park digital literacy just for a moment. NICE, as the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, has been with us for many years. It was set up as a specialist health authority, very much around driving health improvement. Very much a lot of aims about reducing variation in terms of availability and quality of treatments, and thinking about resolving uncertainties. People being interested in national standards, as well as being sometimes overwhelmed by the enormity of information that goes hand in hand with NICE. How can we drive health improvement? How can we manage patient care to the best of our ability? So NICE, which is familiar to all of you, NICE have some getting involved web pages. Now, this was something that I stumbled across, is probably the best word, a number of years ago. And if you're interested in opportunities, I would recommend having a look at this website. I always just Google NICE and getting involved. They revamp this page on quite a regular basis. And for example, as a member of the public, if you're interested in going to the NICE Public Board, which moves around the UK, then that's an opportunity for people to go along to. Equally, you might fancy joining a guideline committee, and that's something that you can apply to do because obviously vacancies come up quite often. And there is an opportunity to become a NICE Fellow or a NICE Scholar. And this was something that I applied for. So NICE Scholars is an opportunity to be an ambassador for NICE 1 day a week. We are joined by Avril Tucker, one of my colleagues in the room. Give a wave, Avril. Avril is engaged in an initiative called UTI Friday, and you can talk to her about that at lunchtime, and I'm sure there'll be a number of further presentations about that in the coming months and years. I applied to be a NICE Fellow, which means that 1 day a month I spend time as an ambassador for NICE on particular projects that I have chosen and discussed with NICE and agreed. My actual fellowship had 3 strands, 2 of them very much education based, and this NICE Student Champion scheme is one of them. So that's where it all started. I've been a NICE Fellow. I started in 2015, and there is plenty of information on the Getting Involved NICE web pages if you want to have a look at some of the scholars and fellows projects and initiatives. So I'd heard of the NICE Student Champion scheme because there's information there on the NICE website. And in terms of what it is, this is where we do a very low-tech straw poll. So how many of you in the room have heard of NICE Evidence Search? Okay, excellent, thank you. And how many of you use it on a very regular basis, let's say once a week or more? That's really helpful. I had no idea what you were going to say in response to that question. So you'll see that this is a search engine which is very accessible. There are a number of different resources and ways that you can use the NICE Evidence Search engine, and I'll be going through some of these in just a moment. It is updated on a very regular basis, and this is why it has a lot of validity, not only for healthcare professionals, but also for students and for patients too. And we'll come to patients very shortly. So in terms of the NICE Student Champion scheme, this is about teaching students how to use NICE Evidence Search. It's a type of cascade training program, because I think it's fair to say with anything in life, if you're using something new or for the first time, it's quite nice to have a buddy or a friend to hold your hand, as I tend to put it. Somebody who will guide you so you don't get completely overwhelmed at the first go. Okay, SPAFI is going to come up a little bit later then, and I shall talk a little bit more about the work that they have been engaged in. That's excellent. Lovely. And so the NICE Student Champion Scheme, well, what is that all about? So in terms of aims, this is thinking about student leaders who would welcome the opportunity to champion NICE and the NICE Evidence web search engine. As I always say to people, I'm not on commission from NICE. This is simply one search engine. There are many others and some that you may certainly prefer to use. But there is a lot there, and NICE Evidence Search does have a lot to offer. It raises awareness about NICE and its work for health and social care students, and it also helps to teach them how to use this resource quite effectively. Really thinking about the use of evidence-based information as well. So what's in it for student champions? And some of this would transfer to other types of peer-led teaching sessions. For students, it very much provides the opportunity to develop their teaching and presentation skills, and I'll give you some examples in a moment. It means that the context is relevant. So I have to say, in terms of perhaps staying within our silos, the children's nursing students love being taught by another children's nursing student. The mental health nurses want to be taught by a mental health nursing student. This has meant some relevance. It has meant that if people are talking about examples of academic work, knowing what essays are coming next, because it's obviously in an academic university context, people will say, you've got something coming up in a few weeks' time, let's look, for example, at these topics. So that has relevance. For students' portfolios, it means that people have gained a number of transferable skills, both for now and for the future. And for students who deliver one or more nice student champion sessions, they are simply asked to gather some top tips and think about how that went, do a very short report for NICE, and then they are entitled to go to a day with NICE in London. I always tell students it's not a day out and a spa day, it's only a train ticket, but again, we have had a lot of engagement, and it means that students can come together with other student champions from around the UK, and they found that very beneficial. So for the students who are not the champions, for the students who are simply going along to the sessions, they get an enormous amount out of it. They have said, wow, we've actually had a whole session just on NICE evidence search, it's relevant to us, and they've then got a go-to person, usually from within their own class, from within their group. That helps in terms of ongoing reference, in terms of using NICE evidence search. So the process is pretty much suggested by NICE, and it's the same across the country. And again, if you want to find more about this, simply the NICE Getting Involved web pages, the NICE Student Champion Scheme was where you'll find out a bit more about this. There's a lot of liaison between the university and NICE. They have an education team. What we did at Swansea was we promoted this to a whole host of health and social care students. We did that by using Blackboard as our electronic learning platform. We did it by email, and we had some face-to-face sessions very much like this to really promote it to students. Those interested in becoming champions did a simple 300-word expression of interest, and then we held a training day that was timetabled. Students, if they were in practice, had permission to come in for that, and they were then prepared. They learned about NICE evidence search. Usually we had a member of NICE coming down to teach and to help with that. Our library staff were absolutely key. And during the session, they learned to role play. So they would actually learn about how to use NICE evidence search on the computer. They would then do a 2 or 3 minute role play of coming out to the front, introducing themselves, saying, now, you know, all eyes on the screen, we want you to look at this, just as we did a few moments ago. I took quite an authoritative stance in terms of timetabling the sessions, simply because you will appreciate the challenge of trying to timetable sessions for a whole range of different years, room bookings, etc. And that has worked extremely well for us at Swansea. Students have access to a range of learning resources. It's their choice how they actually deliver the session. We tell them that the aim is for them to simply raise awareness about NICE evidence search with their peers. And so they can include quizzes, they can include a bit of information about NICE, and the usual things about planning and preparation are very much reinforced to them. So we've run this for the last 3 years at Swansea. You can see our flyer here, and we have managed to roll this out to a wide number of undergraduate students, certainly in terms of across a range of professions. It did start at Swansea in the medical school a number of years ago. Trying to get student champions to be involved, I would say, has been rather a challenge, because we had a lot of people at the start, and gradually, as a number more people have had this training, I think we've reached a little bit of saturation. So going forwards from here, we are certainly now, probably this Friday, going to be developing some e-learning materials so that we have got some resources going forwards, rather than every session being peer taught. So just briefly, we have conducted not only some research with the champions that I'm going to tell you about, but since the very start of the scheme, NICE have done a pre and post-session survey. So this is for all students who come along and experience the NICE Student Champion scheme. They are asked if they want to participate, and they are simply asked at the beginning of the session, have you heard of NICE Evidence Search? Which programme are you doing? Which year are you in? And how comfortable you feel using NICE Evidence Search generally. In terms of the Student Champion scheme, what we did was we wanted to hear about the experience of the student champions. What was it actually like to be a champion? And so what we did, NICE provided us with some of the quantitative data, which is reported elsewhere, and we asked the champions what were their experiences of actually being involved in and delivering the scheme. I'm mindful of time, so I'm not deliberating too much on some of these slides. Okay, so we found that students themselves, we had a team in the Department of Nursing made up of a range of fields of nursing, and we undertook some focus groups with the champions who were happy to be involved with that. And one of the students said, I was a bit selfish. I thought if I need to learn more about it, it'd help my essays. But then also the way the organiser presented it, tell others about it, I thought, well, it helped me. So if I can help all the ones in my class do the same, then that would be good then. They could see the value of them not only learning something about this search engine, but in it being shared with others in their group. Students found it to be quite a positive experience on the training day, and I'll leave that up so you can read. Having it explained to them in quite an amount of detail so they could then train others, students found this to be a valuable and useful experience. There's certainly an unknown factor when you're teaching something, as I was earlier, where people will go off and do their own thing. And that's fine with this search engine. So student champions said, as they walked around the room, it's nice to see them finding something and they're going, oh, look at this. And you're going, oh, I haven't found that either. Because to be adept at NICE Evidence Search, it's a huge beast, if you like. So people became comfortable with the fact that others in their group were going off and learning more at a fairly fast pace. Some of the student champions talked about taking this into practice. They talked about showing their mentors. They talked about using the information and sharing this with patients. There were a number of ways that people began to take this forwards. And so in terms of students' experiences, they were generally very positive. There were a few occasions where students found it quite challenging teaching their peers in terms of attendance and registration, different sizes of groups. It tended to work best where students had not engaged with NICE Evidence Search before, where it was something quite new to them. And there was certainly a lot of transferable learning for the student champions, where they were able to grow their own teaching skills, grow some of their own skills in terms of awareness of being in that position of being a leader, basically. Certainly, in terms of using NICE Evidence Search, people found that it was not only beneficial to them and to others, it certainly supported academic assignments and learning in practice. And in terms of a conclusion, we found at Swansea University that this scheme has been extremely useful and valuable for students. I mentioned SPAFI earlier, and the work that appears in the Journal of Academic Librarianship talks about the NICE Student Champion scheme over overall in the UK. It certainly has been used a lot with medical students and students studying dentistry. It's been used with pharmacy students, as well as in the UK there are only 4 schools of nursing, we're one of them, who have been taking this forward. And so it has a lot of value for students attending, for the student champions, as well as people learning about how best to engage in health improvement and really to think about how to find the best evidence. So I'll leave you with my references there, and thank you for inviting me, and invite you to go forward and to have a look closer at NICE evidence search. Thank you.